Hey everybody, welcome to the channel, True Crime Stories. If you're new to the channel, please hit that like button and subscribe so you can hear more. Thanks for stopping by. I wanted to do a follow-up to a story that I made a video about recently. This is about a little girl who was kidnapped and later found dead in Bowling Green, Kentucky. A man with a lengthy criminal history has been charged in connection with the 1996 kidnapping and death of a young girl nearly 30 years after the crime. Court documents read that Robert Scott Froberg faces one count of kidnapping, resulting in death. The charge stems from the abduction and killing of a child whose body was found in the woods in White House, Tennessee on October 20th, 1996. According to the affidavit filed by the FBI, Froberg admitted to kidnapping the child, strangling her, and disposing of her body after investigators confronted him with DNA evidence linking him to the crime. Now, in the story that I talked about how they found an abandoned van. Now, court documents state that Froberg stole a maroon Chevrolet van from behind a residence in Dayton, Ohio. On July the 24th, Froberg exited I-65 in Bowling Green and went to a house to buy marijuana. He went to the Colony Apartments, and this is where he saw the little girl. A witness, according to court documents, saw the kidnapping take place and described the van as a Chevrolet van with a license plate, and she gave the letters of the license plate as best as she could remember them. She described the suspect as a white male in his 20s with shoulder-length brown hair, a thin build, tan skin, wearing a white T-shirt, and they made a composite drawing based on her description. Froberg admitted to snatching the child and throwing her into the stolen van. He told investigators she was crying and screaming as he sped out of Bowling Green. He said he lied to her and told her that he was taking her to her father so that she would calm down. This is the identity not of the deceased person in this story, but of the murderer. And it took many years for them to find out who it was. And of course, for those in Kentucky, you probably have heard of this story. People probably all around the world who follow these types of missing persons, true crime stories, have probably heard of Morgan Violi. Now, she was a little child who was kidnapped. She was 7 years old, and she was kidnapped from outside of the apartment complex where she lived on July the 24th, 1996. Now, details in her case is that she was outside of the Colony Apartments in Bowling Green, Kentucky, playing with some other children. And a man driving an older maroon 1978 van pulled up, grabbed her. So he grabbed Morgan, he threw her in the van, and he fled out of the parking lot. Now, there were some men outside nearby, and they saw this van go speeding out, and they were kind of mad about it because they thought that people shouldn't be driving that way in here with the kids outside playing. But it wasn't until later in the day when they realized that the child had gone missing. Now, her remains would be found on October 20th, 3 months later, in Robertson County, Tennessee. Now, in February of 2026, nearly 30 years after this, 62-year-old Robert Scott Froberg, an inmate who was already serving time in Alabama, was charged with kidnapping Morgan And it just says here he was charged with kidnapping resulting in her death. Now, due to the details of Morgan's kidnapping, I personally believe that she was sexually assaulted, even though he wasn't charged with that. Now, prosecutors stated that he confessed to kidnapping and murdering the child, and he admitted that he was on the run at the time he had escaped from prison. This is from Lex 18. A man with a lengthy criminal history has been charged in connection in the 1996 kidnapping and death of a little girl in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Court documents say that Robert Scott Froberg faces 1 count of kidnapping, resulting in death under federal law. According to the affidavit filed by the FBI, Froberg admitted to kidnapping the child, strangling her, and disposing of her body. Court documents state that Froberg had stolen a maroon Chevy van from Dayton, Ohio on July the 23rd, 1996. But Froberg says that he went to this apartment complex to buy some marijuana. So I don't know if he knew someone that lived in that apartment complex, if he was just driving by and happened to see these children playing. But this is what he told police, that he exited I-65 in Bowling Green, went to this apartment complex to buy marijuana. And this is when he says that he saw the child outside and he grabbed her. Now, a witness who happened to see the kidnapping take place described the van as a Chevy burgundy van, and she said that she saw the letters on the license plate as MN. And it was that the license plate did start with NM. And they were able to narrow down this van and that it had been stolen in Ohio. Now, this witness described this man as being a white man in his 20s. Him as having shoulder-length brown hair, a thin build, tan complexion, and she said that he was wearing a white t-shirt. Froberg admitted to snatching the child and throwing her into the van. He told investigators that she was crying and screaming so loudly that he lied to her and told her that he was taking her to her father, and this was in an attempt to get her to calm down. He said he got off of I-65 in White House, Tennessee, and he pulled over behind a barn. He said he put his hand over the child's mouth and he covered her mouth with a handkerchief. And he said that this caused her to... Now, he says he puts his hand over her mouth with a handkerchief. This would have been suffocation. But police say she died from strangulation. So he actually strangled her. He tells police, and I'm going to tell you something here. I find this whole story to be kind of, he told police he took off her clothing because he feared that there would be some DNA of his on the clothing, and he dumped them in a dumpster. He then discarded her naked body in the woods near a barn. He says he then cleaned out the van and abandoned it at a truck stop in Williamson County, Tennessee. And then he traveled on to Huntsville, Alabama. Now, law enforcement did find this van on July the 26th, 1996. The case grew cold for decades. And it wasn't until advances in forensic technology provided a new lead. The FBI extracted a DNA profile from a hair found in some vacuum sweepings taken from this van. And the hair had been preserved, and they were able to build a DNA profile, and they were able to enter that into CODIS, and this led them to Froberg. Now, court documents detail a lengthy criminal history. On On December the 27th, 1988, Froberg committed an armed robbery in Montgomery, Alabama, and he was sentenced to a lengthy prison term. He was also found in possession of some paperwork telling how to hotwire cars. Now, on around April the 3rd, 1996, Froberg escaped from a prison work detail in Alabama. He stole a car and he fled Alabama and he went to Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania. There, he robbed an elderly woman and he stole her car, a 1986 Oldsmobile. On or around May 20th, 1996, Froberg was found hiding in a child's treehouse in Dayton, Ohio. A 7-year-old little child encountered Froberg inside the treehouse and ran away and was, running for his mother and saying, there's a man in the treehouse. So this child runs away, thankfully, was able to escape. The mother calls the police and tells them, my child just discovered a man hiding in his treehouse. But by the time the police got there, Froberg had fled on foot, but he was picked up and apprehended a short distance later. He was taken to the county jail, and on July the 16th, 1996, he escaped from the jail by climbing a rain spout and using a cable to shimmy down the side of the building. And from there, he stole a bicycle. And this is how he was able to get away from the prison. And this was days before little Morgan Violi was kidnapped. Now, following the match in CODIS, the FBI and the Bowling Green, Kentucky Police Department began investigating Froberg. According to documents, investigators learned that he had an association with a corrections nurse for the Department of Alabama Corrections who lived in Huntsville, Alabama. And they believed that she had helped him to escape from prison when he originally escaped, and she had provided him with some money. Now, a Bowling Green Police Department detective and a special agent traveled to Alabama, and they interviewed Froberg, and Froberg waived his Miranda rights and agreed to speak with the investigators. It was during this interview that he admitted that he had kidnapped and killed the child. And a criminal complaint was filed on February the 26th, that's this year, in the District of Western Kentucky District. And so that is where it stands right now. He has admitted to kidnapping the child. He admitted to killing the child. I believe that he did sexually assault her. There's no mention of that in the story. So I don't know what his charges will actually be. Murder, kidnapping. He's already in prison. I don't know if he's just in prison still for the auto thefts and escaping from prison earlier. But if any updates come about his sentencing or anything like that, I will come back and do a follow-up on that. Thanks for watching.